I'm Denise Foster, 28 years old, and I thought I knew my family until that dinner changed everything. We were gathered around the table in our Atlanta home, the kind of place that screams old money, but I wasn't there to play their game. My startup was my life, my passion, building tech that could change the world. But to my parents and sister, it was a joke, a childish dream I should have ditched years ago. I sat there in my jeans and sweater, the odd one out, while they flaunted designer clothes and smug smiles. The air was thick with tension as forks clinked against plates. Then my mom leaned forward, her voice sharp as a knife. "Denise, we're done bailing you out," she snapped. "We're not your bank anymore." My dad nodded, his eyes cold, like I was some charity case they were tired of funding. My sister chimed in, her laugh cutting deeper than words, saying I'd never match her success. They thought they were teaching me a lesson, putting me in my place. I stayed quiet, my phone buzzing in my pocket with a message I knew would flip their world upside down. They had no idea what was coming, no clue. I held the keys to everything they valued. If you think their smugness lasted, stick around. This story is about to turn their laughter to silence. If you want to see how I turn their words against them, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell. You won't want to miss what happens next. As the appetizers hit the table, my mom's voice turned ice cold. "Denise, your little tech project is a waste of time," she said, slicing through the hum of clinking glasses. Her eyes locked on me, sharp with disappointment, as if I'd personally insulted her by chasing my startup dream. Mom leaned back in her chair, her diamond necklace glinting under the chandelier. "You're almost 30. When are you going to grow up and get a real job?" Dad didn't miss a beat. He set his wine glass down, his face stern, like he was delivering a verdict. "Your sister's out there closing million-dollar deals in real estate," he said, gesturing toward Tracy, who smirked across the table. "That's what success looks like, Denise, not some app that hasn't made a dime." His words stung, but I kept my face neutral, my hands folded in my lap. I wasn't about to give them the reaction they wanted. Tracy, of course, couldn't resist piling on. She tossed her hair, her gold bracelet catching the light, and launched into a story about her latest triumph. "Just signed a contract for a downtown condo project," she bragged, her voice dripping with pride. "7 figures, Denise. That's the kind of money you'll never see chasing your silly dreams." She laughed, a sharp cutting sound that made my stomach twist. "You're still living off our scraps, aren't you? Always needing a handout." Mom nodded, her lips pursed. "We've been too soft on you," she said, folding her napkin with deliberate precision. "Tracy's right. You can't keep leeching off us forever." The accusation landed like a punch, but I didn't flinch. I'd heard this before. Every family gathering, every holiday, the same tired script. They thought I was the weak link, a failure who'd never measure up to their polished high society standards. Dad leaned forward, his voice low but firm. "It's time you stood on your own 2 feet, Denise. No more safety net. You need to learn what it means to work for something." He spoke as if he had built his fortune from nothing, not from the trust fund that paid for their mansion, their cars, their entire lifestyle. The irony wasn't lost on me, but I stayed silent, letting their words wash over me like a cold wave. Tracy wasn't done. She sipped her wine, her eyes glinting with amusement. "Maybe you should take a page from my book. Get a real estate license. Start small. Actually contribute to this family." Her tone was patronizing, like she was talking to a child. "You're not cut out for this startup nonsense. It's embarrassing, honestly." I clenched my jaw, my fingers tightening around the edge of my chair. Their words weren't new, but they cut deeper tonight. Each jab a reminder of how little they thought of me. They saw me as a dreamer, a burden, someone who'd never amount to anything. But I wasn't here to argue or beg for their approval. I felt the weight of my phone in my pocket, a silent promise of what was to come. They thought they held all the cards, that they could dictate my future with their money and their judgment. The dining room buzzed with their confidence, their smug certainty that they were in control. Mom's sharp glances, Dad's condescending tone, Tracy's mocking laughter. They were so sure of themselves, so convinced they'd put me in my place. I let them talk, let them dig their own grave with every word. They had no idea I was about to rewrite the rules of their game. When everyone raised their glasses for a toast, my phone buzzed with a message. I glanced at the screen, my pulse quickening as I saw the name, Margaret Lee, the trust fund manager. Her text was brief, but heavy. APP approved monthly allowances for Edward, Nancy, Tracy Foster, $20,000 each. I slipped the phone back into my pocket, the weight of what was coming settling over me. Their sharp words from earlier, their smug confidence, still burned in my mind. They thought they'd put me in my place, but the truth was about to hit them hard. I caught Shannon Reed's eye across the room. My best friend and startup partner knew the stakes. I gave a subtle nod, and she slipped away from her conversation, joining me near the bar. "They're in for a shock," she whispered, her voice low but buzzing with anticipation. "They don't know you're the one calling the shots." I leaned closer, my tone steady. "They've been living off my decisions for years," I said, glancing at Mom, Dad, and Tracy laughing with their high society crowd. "Time to wake them up." The dining room doors swung open, and Margaret Lee stepped in, her heels clicking sharply on the polished floor. She carried a leather folder, her face calm but all businesslike. She was here to settle a score. The chatter faded, guests sensing a shift in the air. Mom's smile faltered, her eyes narrowing at the interruption. Dad set his wine glass down, his jaw tightening. Tracy mid-sentence froze, her gaze flicking to the stranger. "Miss Foster?" she said, her voice cutting through the room as she addressed me. "I need your approval for the trust fund disbursements." She opened the folder, revealing documents stamped with the trust seal. Every head turned to me, the silence thick with confusion. Dad let out a sharp laugh, dismissive. "This is nonsense," he said, his tone booming. "Denise managing the trust? She's just a dreamer with a failing app." Mom chimed in, her voice tight. "We're mistaken, Margaret. Our daughter doesn't handle our finances. She can't even handle her own." Tracy smirked, crossing her arms. "What's this? Some kind of prank? Denise controlling our money? She's a nobody."
Margaret didn't flinch. She slid a document across the table, pointing to a highlighted line. "Miss Denise Foster has been the sole trustee of the $20 million Foster Family Trust since age 25, she said, her words clear and unshakable. "She oversees all assets, your mansion, cars, and monthly allowances of $20,000 each. No funds are released without her signature." The room froze. Dad's face went pale, his confidence crumbling. Mom's hand clutched her necklace, her eyes wide. Tracy's smirk vanished, her glass trembling in her hand. Margaret closed her folder, gave me a curt nod, and turned toward the door. "I'll await your decision, Miss Foster," she said, her heels echoing as she left. The silence that followed was deafening. Their stunned faces locked on me. I stood up, my voice steady and sharp. "For 3 years, I've approved every dollar you've spent," I said, meeting their eyes. "Your cars, your vacations, Tracy's condo deals, all of it rests on my signature. You thought you were in control, but it's always been me." Their world was unraveling, and I was just getting started. As dessert was served, my phone buzzed again. I pulled it out, ignoring the clatter of plates and the forced chatter around the table. The screen lit up with a message from Paul Carter, the bank manager who handled the trust transactions. "Confirm hold on all foster family allowances," it read. My fingers hovered over the reply button, my pulse steady despite the weight of the moment. They'd spent years treating me like a failure, but now it was time to show them the cost of their arrogance. I stepped away from the table, my voice low as I dialed Paul. "Put a hold on everything," I said, my tone calm but firm. No disbursements for Edward, Nancy, or Tracy Foster, effective immediately. Paul's response was professional, clipped. Understood, Miss Foster. It's done. I hung up, slipping the phone back into my pocket, and returned to my seat, my face giving nothing away. Tracy was the first to notice something was wrong. She frowned at her phone, her perfectly manicured nails tapping the screen frantically. "What's this?" she muttered, her voice rising. "My card's been declined." She swiped again, her cheeks flushing as the error message popped up. "This is impossible. I just used it this morning." Dad's brow furrowed, his fork paused midair. "What's going on, Tracy?" he asked, his tone sharp with irritation. She shoved her phone toward him, her voice trembling. "My account's frozen. And my real estate deal, the one for the downtown condos, it's falling through. They're saying the funds didn't clear." Mom's hand flew to her chest, her bracelet jangling. "This must be a mistake." She turned to Dad, her fingers gripping his arm. "Edward, what about the house, the taxes, the mortgage? Is that safe?" I leaned back in my chair, my voice steady as I spoke. "The mansion belongs to the trust," I said, "and I control the trust. Without my approval, there's no money for taxes, no money for anything." Dad's face went pale. "That's ridiculous," he stammered. Tracy jumped in, her tone desperate. "You're bluffing," she said. Mom's voice cracked as she tried to reason with me. "Denise, be reasonable. We've always supported you. This is just a misunderstanding." I shook my head, my expression cold. "For 3 years, I've signed every check that funded your lives," I said. "You thought you were calling the shots, but it's been me all along." The truth landed like a blow, silencing their excuses. Tracy's phone buzzed again, an email from her biggest client. "Contract terminated," she gasped, her face crumpling. Dad tried to regain control, his voice rising. "We don't need your handouts." Their lifestyle, their power, their entire world depended on me. Mom's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Denise, you can't do this to us," she whispered. My phone pinged with an email, breaking the tense quiet. The subject line read, "Concerns about your startup's credibility." My blood boiled as I scanned the message. Tracy had spread lies to investors, calling my startup a scam, a desperate grab for cash. Her sabotage had cost me a critical funding round, nearly killing my company before it could stand. I looked up, my eyes locking on Tracy. "You told investors my startup was a fraud?" I said, my voice low but sharp. I held up my phone, the email glowing like evidence. Mom's face showed a mix of guilt and defiance. "Denise, Tracy was just protecting our family's reputation," she said, her voice trembling but firm. Dad nodded, his jaw tight. "She didn't mean harm," he said, his tone softer. "She was trying to keep our name clean." Their words hit like a punch to the gut. Tracy seized the chance, her voice desperate but defiant. "I had to, Denise. Your app was a joke, dragging our family down. I was saving us." The room felt smaller, the air thick with their collective betrayal. I set my phone down, my gaze cold and steady. "You all knew," I said. Dad looked away, his silence louder than words. Tracy's shoulders slumped. "You thought you could break me," I said, standing taller, my voice unwavering. "But for 3 years, I've signed every check that funded your lives. You betrayed me, all of you, and I'm done. No more allowances, no more trust fund, not a single cent." Mom gasped. Dad's face crumpled. Their world was collapsing, and I felt no pity. As the party wound down, I stood up, ready to walk away. The $20 million trust fund is mine to manage, and I'm redirecting every cent into my startup. My tech company, the one you called a joke, is my future. You get nothing. Not now, not ever. Dad's voice broke the quiet, low and strained. "Denise, the mansion, If you don't release the funds, we can't pay the property taxes. They'll take it. I met his gaze, unflinching. That's not my problem anymore, I said. Tracy's head snapped up, her eyes wild with panic. You're destroying me, she said. My clients are gone. My deals are dead. I'm nothing without my reputation. I felt no pity. Mom's voice trembled. Denise, we're your family, she said. You can't just abandon us. I shook my head, my resolve unshaken. Family doesn't lie to investors to ruin someone's dream. You did that, not me. I took a step toward the door. I don't need you to succeed, I said. I've built my company from the ground up with my own work, my own vision. The trust fund is just a tool, one I'll use to prove you wrong. I turned to leave, my steps deliberate. You thought you could break me, I said, pausing at the door. But I'm the one who's been holding you up, and I'm done. They'd lost everything, their wealth, their status, their power, because they chose to betray me instead of believe in me. As I walked out, the Atlanta skyline glowed through the mansion's windows. I was free, ready to build something bigger than their small-minded world, powered by my own strength and the trust fund I controlled. 6 months later, I stood in my new startup office, watching the Atlanta skyline light up. My tech startup had become a rising star in Atlanta's competitive tech scene. The $20 million trust fund now fueled a company that was mine. Meanwhile, Mom and Dad's world had shrunk. They'd sold their sprawling Atlanta mansion at a loss, trading their glittering view for a cramped apartment. They now live modestly, scraping by on Dad's dwindling investments and Mom's part-time consulting gigs. Tracy's fall was even steeper. Her real estate career had collapsed. With her reputation in tatters, she'd taken a desk job at a small property management firm. Shannon Reed stood by my side through it all, my best friend and co-founder. Our startup was thriving, with new investors lining up and users downloading our app by the thousands. Looking out at the city, I thought about the lesson I learned. Never underestimate someone because they might hold your future. My family thought they could control me, dismiss my dreams, even sabotage my work, but they'd been wrong. Self-reliance was my path to real success. Their downfall wasn't my fault, but it was their consequence. The trust fund, once their crutch, was now my tool to reshape the future. To everyone who's followed this story, thank you for listening. Never let anyone make you feel small. Your strength is enough to build your own path.